What would you do if the people you loved most turned your home into a cage? When my husband passed away, I thought I had already reached the bottom of grief. But the real tragedy was only beginning. The night after the funeral, my daughter-in-law threw my luggage into the garage and said coldly, "From now on, you'll be sleeping with the dog." I didn't react. I just nodded and smiled. She had no idea that behind my silence, I was holding a far greater secret, the tens of millions of dollars and the seaside mansion my husband had left behind. That night, in the damp chill of the garage, I swore I would rewrite the rules with the calm resolve of a widow who had loved deeply and endured enough. If you're still listening, tell me where you're watching from. Every comment you leave is another mark in this journey, and if this story has touched you, don't forget to hit like so it can reach even further. My name is Cassandra Reed, 60 years old. I had just buried my husband of 42 years, Gordon Reed. That morning, a light rain fell over Memorial Oak Cemetery in Houston. Each drop felt as cold as steel against the damp earth. Black umbrellas formed a ring around the flag-draped coffin while the soft sound of an organ played somewhere in the distance. The air was thick with lilies, wet soil, and tears. I stood there gripping my shawl, trying to balance between sorrow and the strange emptiness that comes when a life ends and another is forced to begin. People say that after death, love is all that remains. But that day I realized love isn't the only thing that survives. Ambition and hypocrisy do too. My son Nathan sat quietly in the front row, eyes red and swollen. My daughter-in-law Sable was different. She didn't cry, didn't tremble like someone mourning a loved one. She watched, her gaze flicking from one desk to another, as if sorting and calculating who might be useful later. When I caught that look, I knew immediately this wasn't grief. This was the beginning of a plan. As the priest praised Gordon's generosity and devotion, I saw Sable's jaw tighten. Beneath her black veil, her eyes were as cold as stone. A chill ran down my spine, not from the weather, but from the realization that she had been waiting for this very moment, waiting for my husband to be lowered into the ground so she could begin dividing what remained. When the ceremony ended, people left one by one, leaving only white flowers trembling in the rain. I leaned over the coffin, laid my hand on it, and whispered, "Rest easy, Gordon. I'll be fine. I promise." I didn't know that only a few hours later, that promise would turn into a vow for justice. The black Mercedes rolled slowly through the wet streets of Houston. I sat in the back seat watching tall buildings fade behind a curtain of rain. The seat beside me was empty. Gordon's seat, the one where he used to sit when he drove me to church or dinner parties. Now it was just me, the hollow hum of warm air from the vent, and silence. Sybil drove, her red nails tapping on the steering wheel. Her eyes met mine in the rearview mirror without sympathy. Nathan sat beside her, gripping his phone, afraid to speak. No one said a word the whole ride. When the car turned onto our oak-lined driveway, leading to the two-story River Oaks house where Gordon and I had lived for more than 20 years, my heart clenched. That house once overflowed with laughter and jazz on Saturday nights. Now it felt hollow, a battleground instead of a home. When the car stopped, I opened the door and froze. My 3 brown leather suitcases, the ones I'd packed to stay at Nathan's house for a few days after the funeral, were already sitting by the garage in the rain. Dust coated them as if they'd been there since morning. I looked up. Sable stood on the porch, arms crossed. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice raw. She shrugged, a faint smirk curling her lips. "Oh, I thought you already understood. Now that Gordon's gone, things have to change." Her tone was light, but every word cut deep. Nathan stood behind her, staring at the floor. "Son," I said softly, "what does your wife mean?" He avoided my eyes. "It's just temporary, Mom. We just need to rearrange a few things." Before I could say anything else, Sable pulled open the garage door and said clearly, "You can stay here. The room next to the dogs is still empty." Then she turned her back and walked inside. Her heels clicked sharply on the wood, each step echoing like a hammer on my chest. Rain mixed with my tears as I bent down and dragged my suitcases inside. The garage smelled of rust and gasoline. I placed the bags beside Gordon's old toolbox and sat on a folding cot. The walls were stained, the air damp. But I didn't cry. Instead, I smiled the same calm smile Gordon once had, and I already knew how the story would end. Because no one knew that before Gordon passed, he had quietly arranged everything: accounts, investments, even our seaside villa in Cancun, all under my name. $19 million in total. I was the only one who knew the codes, the only one who had the keys. Sable thought I was a frail widow living off her son. Let her think that. The next morning, sunlight crept through the tiny garage window. I heard Sable moving upstairs, clinking dishes, the smell of coffee drifting through the vents. I stayed quiet, waiting. When Nathan peeked in before work, guilt was written all over him. "I'm sorry, Mom. Sable's just under stress. Everything would be fine." I smiled. "It's all right, Nathan. I know where I belong." When the door closed, I opened the locket around my neck. Inside was Gordon's picture and a note he'd written years ago. "Silence, Cass, is your strongest weapon." That night, as Sable and Nathan dined upstairs, I listened from below and began writing in a small notebook. Observe. Record every habit. Find weaknesses. Wait. Because in every war, the silent ones are the most dangerous. Days blurred together. I became their quiet shadow, cooking breakfast, washing dishes, folding laundry, while Sable barked orders like a queen in her castle. "You can clear the dishes when we're done. And don't forget to feed the dogs." Her words dripped with disdain. Nathan kept pretending not to notice. I washed and wiped, one plate at a time, my reflection staring back from the clean surface, an old woman with fire hidden behind calm eyes. By noon, I hung laundry in the backyard. The sun warmed my face. The magnolia tree Gordon had planted years ago bloomed taller than the roof. I touched its trunk and whispered, "You said it would shade me one day, love." Looks like you were right. That evening, Sable came home laughing on the phone. "It helps having a free housemate around," she said to whoever was listening. Her laughter rang through the hall like knives on glass. I folded a towel and smiled again. Let her think she'd won. When the house went quiet, I opened my notebook and wrote, "Day 1, they believe I'm powerless." Perfect. The next morning began the same way, the smell of coffee, the tick of the kitchen clock. I woke before dawn, slipped on my cardigan, and started breakfast. Eggs Benedict for Nathan. Pancakes for the kids. Salad without dressing for Sable. She came down late, scrolling her phone, perfume thick in the air. "Press my navy dress," she said, "and clean my nude heels. There's a stain." Not even a please. Nathan muttered thanks, kissed me on the cheek, and left for work. The door shut. His car faded. Then Sable's voice drifted from upstairs. I looked into a nursing home in Dallas. The cost is way cheaper than keeping her here. Nathan doesn't need to know yet. I stood in the hallway, rag in hand. A nursing home. Cheaper. My fingers went cold. At noon, I ate a slice of cold bread alone and added a new line to my notebook. Day 7, Sable researching nursing homes. Stay calm. Anger clouds judgment. I needed clarity. That afternoon, I ironed clothes in her dressing room. The scent of Chanel filled the air. On her vanity lay a credit card statement. Spa Serenity $1.200. Yoga Retreat Aspen $3.450. Nathan had told me their budget was tight. Yet here she was, bathing in luxury. When the children came home, I baked cookies. "Grandma, Mom said you don't have to," little Ava whispered. "I like doing it," I said, handing her one. She smiled, tasting warmth no one else in that house offered anymore. That night I wrote again. Day 8, spa bills and yoga charges don't match their income. Track everything. I waited until they slept, then crept into Gordon's old office. His computer still worked, password unchanged. The screen glowed pale blue as I checked their joint account. Regular cash withdrawals, thousands each month, sent to Serene Holdings LLC, a ghost company in Dallas. Numbers don't lie, people do. I copied every record, printed receipts, and locked them away. Before dawn, I whispered, "All right, Cassandra, now it begins." The next morning, sunlight hit the magnolia leaves outside the small window. I dialed a number I hadn't called in months. Morton Law Office. "This is Caleb." "Caleb, it's me, Cassandra Reed." His voice softened. "Mrs. Reed, I've been expecting your call. You need to see something immediately." I hung up, changed into a cream dress, picked up my handbag, notebook, and the old key Gordon had once kept hidden. The drive to Morton and Associates was slow through the Houston traffic, sunlight glinting on my hands. Caleb greeted me in a gray suit, his expression both gentle and grave. He slid a blue file across the mahogany table labeled "Assets in Trust of Gordon Reed." His words came steady. "Gordon placed everything, the Highland Park home, the Azure Cove villa in Cancun, stocks, bonds, all under your name, Cassandra. No co-owners. Entirely yours." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Tears blurred the page where Gordon had written in his own hand, "Make sure Cass never has to depend on anyone. Never." Caleb added softly, "He did this a year before he passed. He wanted to protect you." I wiped my tears and nodded. "Then it's time I protect what he left." Outside the office, the Houston air smelled of wet asphalt and blooming magnolias. I stood there, the city lights flickering, and whispered, "Thank you, Gordon. The game has just begun." That night, I brewed coffee in the dark kitchen while laughter echoed upstairs. Sybil's voice floated down, sweet and confident. "Yes, I can move the money by the weekend." I smiled at the steam rising from my cup. She thought she was moving money. She had no idea she was moving straight into the trap of her own making. I closed my notebook and wrote the final line for the night. Day 9, the queen doesn't realize the pawn has the board. And that, my friends, was the moment I stopped being the widow in the garage and became something else entirely. I became a woman who finally understood that silence isn't weakness, it's a weapon. The house above me hummed with laughter and fake love while I sat below, calm and awake, planning every move like a chess player who already knows the endgame. The next morning, Sable came downstairs in a rush, perfume thick enough to choke the air. She tossed a ring of keys on the counter. "If you're bored, you can clean out the storage room," she said, eyes glued to her phone. "Just don't break anything valuable." I smiled faintly. Valuable, what an interesting word. When she left, I slipped the small camera I'd ordered overnight into my pocket. Tiny, hidden, disguised as a smoke detector. I climbed to the second floor, pretending to dust. I placed one in the hallway, one near the living room shelf, another in the office vent. My hands didn't shake. I moved like I'd done this all my life. By noon, the house itself was on my side. That afternoon, the first crack appeared. Nathan's phone rang in the living room. He was upstairs, so I answered softly, "Hello?" A man's voice, smooth and quick, said, "Tell Sable the transfer cleared. Same amount next week." Then he hung up. My pulse slowed. I saved the number. When Sable returned, her smile was bright and fake. "Everything fine today?" "Perfect," I said, keeping my eyes gentle. That night, I watched the first recordings. Sable pacing the hall, whispering on her phone, "Yes, Derek, he doesn't suspect a thing." Derek. The name rolled through my head like thunder. I rewound, listened again. "He doesn't suspect a thing." Meaning Nathan? My son. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Then I did something Gordon once told me never to forget. When you find the truth, don't panic. Use it. I opened my notebook and wrote day 10, name, Derek. Confirm connection. Stay invisible. The next day, the tension thickened. Nathan came home earlier than usual, voice raised. "Sable, where did the 50,000 go?" I saw the account alert. She smiled sweetly, wrapping her arms around him. "Relax. It's an investment. You worry too much." He sighed, defeated. I watched from the kitchen doorway, unseen. He still believed love meant silence. That evening, while everyone slept, I called Caleb again. "Find out who Derek Cole is," I said. His voice sharpened. "You're digging into something big, Cassandra. Be careful." "Careful," I repeated softly. "That's exactly what I'm being." 2 days later, he called back. "Derek Cole, Real estate broker. Dallas. Several failed ventures. One active company, Serene Holdings, LLC. The ghost company from the bank statements. My chest tightened. I whispered, "Thank you, Caleb." That's all I needed. At dawn, I brewed coffee and waited. When Sable entered the kitchen, I handed her a mug. "You must be tired. Long drives lately?" She froze mid-sip. "What drives?" "Dallas," I said mildly. "Traffic's awful this time of year." Her eyes flashed for half a second before she laughed. "You must have dreamed that, Cassandra." She left the mug half full. I smiled. Yes, I thought, and dreams sometimes turn into evidence. By now the air in the house was electric. Nathan sensed something was wrong, but couldn't name it. The children whispered around corners. Even the dogs barked more than usual, as if warning that storms were coming. That night I saw it on the camera, Sable in the office pulling papers from Gordon's drawer. She placed them in her purse, then made a call. "Yes, Derek, the original will is still here. Once I confirm the estate, we can finalize everything." I hit pause. My hands turned cold. She was hunting for the very documents that proved the house was mine. The next morning I pretended to be confused, shuffling papers in the kitchen. "Sable, have you seen Gordon's old will?" Nathan was asking. She stiffened. "Why would I know?" "Oh, I just thought since you spend so much time in the office, I let the words hang." She forced a laugh. "You're imagining things." "Maybe," I said, smiling. "But memories have long legs." After she left, I opened the safe with Gordon's key. Inside lay the real documents and a letter in his handwriting. "If anyone tries to change the story, Cass, remember the truth has your signature on it." I pressed the paper to my heart. "I remember," I whispered. That evening the storm broke. Nathan arrived home soaked, his expression heavy. "Mom, did you move Dad's papers?" I looked at him. "No, but someone else might have." He frowned. "What do you mean?" Before I could answer, Sable entered. "Stop involving her," she snapped. "She's confused." Nathan blinked, torn between us. I turned away before he could see the pain in my eyes. Later, when the house was dark, I uploaded the camera footage to a hidden folder labeled Lotus. I watched Sable's face again, calm and certain, stealing what wasn't hers. I whispered, "Let's see how calm you are when the mirror turns." 2 days later, Caleb called. "Cassandra, you need to hear this. Derek Cole just filed a partnership document listing Sable Reed as co-founder of Serene Holdings." My breath caught. "So it's official," I said. "She's stealing from her own husband." That afternoon, I baked cookies for the children. The smell of vanilla filled the air, covering the scent of war. Ava looked up and said, "Grandma, Mom's always on the phone now. Are you mad at her?" I smiled softly. "No, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups have to let truth find its own way." Night fell early. The rain outside beat against the windows like knocking fists. Around 11, I heard voices upstairs, sharp, heated. "You promised the transfer," Sable hissed. "It's delayed," a man's voice snapped. My pulse raced. She wasn't on the phone. Someone was there. I crept up the stairs barefoot, heart steady. Through the half-open door I saw him, Derek Cole, tall, polished, holding her wrist too tight. "You said he wouldn't check the accounts," he barked. "Relax," she whispered. "Once the house is sold, it's ours." He kissed her, quick and rough. I caught the reflection in the hallway mirror, two snakes twined in betrayal. I stepped back silently and recorded a short clip. Enough. When dawn came, I brewed tea and waited in the kitchen. Sable walked in, hair damp, pretending nothing had happened. "Sleep well?" I asked. "Perfectly." "Good," I said. "You look refreshed." She paused, eyes narrowing, then forced a laugh. "Must be the yoga." I smiled. "Must be?" Inside, I was done being silent. That afternoon, I drove to Caleb's office with the footage. He watched in silence, his jaw tightening. "This is serious," he said. "If this goes public, it destroys both of them." "I don't want destruction," I said softly. I want truth. He nodded. Then wait for the right moment. Let them reveal themselves. And they did. 3 nights later, Sable threw a dinner party. Expensive wine, guests from her club, laughter echoing through the hall. I served food like the perfect servant, invisible. But when she toasted, to new beginnings and bright futures, I caught Derek's text lighting up her phone under the table. Tomorrow at noon. The lawyer is ready. I smiled as I cleared the plates. Tomorrow at noon, she thought she'd win. She didn't know I had already sent every file, photo, and video to Caleb with a single note: if anything happens to me, deliver the truth. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the magnolia tree, feeling the humid wind press against my face. Lightning flashed over the roof, brief and bright. I whispered, "Gordon, I'm doing what you'd want, patient justice." Morning came heavy and gray. Sable dressed in her navy suit, the one she wore when pretending to be respectable. "Big day?" I asked lightly. "Just errands," she said. "Nothing you'd understand." Nathan kissed her cheek and left first. When her car finally disappeared down the driveway, I followed, slow, careful distance. Her route ended downtown at the Argonaut Hotel. She stepped out, heels clicking, greeted Derek at the entrance and slipped inside. I parked 2 blocks away and walked to the glass doors, phone ready. Through the window, I saw them at a corner table. He handed her an envelope. She laughed and touched his arm. I zoomed in, recorded 30 full seconds, then turned away. On the drive home, my hands didn't shake. The plan was almost complete. When Sable returned that afternoon, her tone was sugary. "I hope you didn't mind staying home alone," she said. "Not at all. I enjoy peace." She tilted her head. "Peace? In a garage?" "Peace isn't about where you sleep," I said quietly. "It's about knowing who you are." That line unsettled her. I saw it in her eyes. That night, around 11, she went to the office again. I waited until she went upstairs, then checked the computer. An email draft glowed on the screen, divorce paperwork nearly finished. Just waiting on the estate confirmation. My stomach turned to ice. She wasn't only stealing, she was preparing to leave my son. I copied the email, printed it, and placed it in my notebook. Then I sat in the dark, whispering, "All right, Gordon. The time for quiet is almost over." The next morning, Nathan found me making breakfast. He smiled weakly. "You've been quiet lately, Mom." "Just thinking," I said. He hesitated. Sable mentioned something about transferring property. "Do you know what she means?" I met his eyes. "Maybe it's time you looked for yourself." He frowned, confused. Then upstairs, Sable's voice cut through the air, sharp and panicked. "Where's my laptop? Who touched my files?" My heart pounded, but my face stayed calm. "Everything okay, dear?" I called. "Stay out of this," she shouted. Nathan looked at me, realization dawning, fear mixing with guilt. He turned and ran upstairs. For a few long minutes, the house filled with the sound of shouting, Sable's fury, Nathan's disbelief. I stood by the stove stirring eggs, as steady as the eye of a hurricane. When the voices stopped, footsteps thundered down the stairs. Nathan burst into the kitchen, face pale. "Mom," he said quietly, shaking. "Dad left everything to you, didn't he?" I wiped my hands on a towel. "Yes." Sable appeared behind him, hair wild, clutching the papers she'd stolen. "You lied to us," she spat. "You pretended to be poor just to test me." I met her eyes, calm. "No, Sable. I wanted to see who you were when no one was watching." Nathan's hands trembled. "Sable, what is this?" She shouted, "She's manipulating you." "Enough," I said softly. "Nathan, you should sit down." He didn't move. "Mom, tell me everything." I nodded slowly. "All right. But you won't like what you hear." I walked to Gordon's old desk, opened the top drawer, and pulled out the real will. I placed it on the table beside the photos I'd printed, Sable and Derek at the Argonaut, her hand on his. The air in the room went still. Nathan's voice cracked. "Sable, who is he?" She tried to speak, but no sound came out. I could see the truth breaking through her mask like light through glass. Nathan turned toward me, eyes wet. Mom, I didn't see it. I didn't want to see it. I touched his hand. You see it now. That's enough. Sable slammed her palms on the table. You think this changes anything? You're old, Cassandra. You can't fight me forever. I looked at her gently. I don't need forever. I just need today. Her face twisted, but before she could answer, the front doorbell rang. 3 sharp chimes. Nathan frowned. Who is that? I smiled faintly. Someone who's been waiting for this moment as long as I have. He opened the door. Standing there was Caleb Morton, holding a briefcase and a folder sealed with blue tape. Mrs. Reed, he said, everything is prepared. Sable stepped back, color draining from her face. Prepared for what? Caleb met her gaze calmly. For the transfer of ownership. Effective today, this house and all associated assets revert fully to Cassandra Reed. The clock ticked loud in the silence that followed. Rain began to patter against the windows again, soft but relentless. Sable's lips parted, but no words came. Nathan sank into a chair, head in his hands. I stood still, feeling the air change, the shift you feel right before thunder hits. For months, I had waited in the shadows of my own home. Now the light had finally come back, bright and unforgiving. But the storm wasn't over yet. Because when the papers touched the table, Sable whispered something under her breath, something that made my blood run cold. This isn't over, Cassandra. You still don't know what I've done. And I realized with a chill that she was right. Sable's voice wasn't loud anymore. It was low, steady, almost calm, like someone who knew a secret that could still hurt me. She stood by the window, her hands trembling, but her smile had returned. You think it's over, she whispered, but it's only begun. Her words sank deep. Something in her tone didn't sound like anger. It sounded like certainty. For the first time in weeks, fear brushed my skin again. I looked at Caleb, who was calmly closing his folder. Nathan sat motionless at the table, his face white. Outside, the rain tapped harder on the glass, each drop a reminder that storms never end cleanly. I spoke softly. What do you mean, Sable? What have you done? She tilted her head, eyes shining with something wild. You'll find out soon enough. I've learned a lot from watching you, Cassandra. You hide things well, but so do I. Then she turned, picked up her purse, and walked toward the door. Caleb stepped forward. Mrs. Reed, I suggest you stay until we finalize the papers. Sable laughed softly. Oh, Mr. Morton, you'll be hearing from my lawyer. The door slammed. For a moment, the whole house went still. The ticking clock was the only sound left, counting every second of the silence she'd left behind. Nathan pressed his palms to his eyes. Mom, what is she talking about? What could she have done? I looked at him, my heart heavy. When someone loses control, Nathan, they reach for destruction. And I think your wife just started reaching. Caleb exhaled and closed his briefcase. We'll proceed carefully. If she tries anything, we'll have legal protection in place. I nodded, but a small voice inside me whispered, not everything can be handled by lawyers. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the small window watching lightning roll across the Houston sky. The magnolia tree bent in the wind, its leaves glistening like tears. Something about Sable's smile stayed in my mind. It wasn't just hate. It was promise, a warning. By morning, the air felt heavier, thick with humidity and unease. The house was too quiet. I went to the kitchen, brewed coffee, and noticed something strange. The back door was slightly open. I never left it open. My hands froze on the handle. The grass outside was wet from the storm. A single set of footprints led away from the door toward the fence. I stepped outside. The air smelled like rain and rust. Near the fence lay a small plastic bag. Inside were shredded papers. I picked one up carefully, pressing the damp pieces together. A familiar signature stared back, mine. I hurried inside, spread the torn pages on the counter. They were fragments of bank documents, some of Gordon's old ledgers, but mixed between them was something else, a printed receipt for a life insurance claim. Date, 2 weeks before Gordon's death. Recipient, Sable Reed. My knees weakened. No, I whispered. That can't be real. The sound of a car engine outside pulled me back. Nathan was home early. He stepped in, his face worried. Mom, she's been calling nonstop. She says you framed her. I looked up at him, trying to steady my voice. She took out an insurance claim in Gordon's name, Nathan, 2 weeks before he died. He blinked. That's impossible. She didn't even know the paperwork. She knew enough, I said quietly. And now I think she's using something we haven't seen yet. Nathan's face turned pale. What if she forged something? A signature. I swallowed. Then we need proof. I spent the rest of the day in Gordon's old study. Every drawer, every file, every cabinet, I opened them all. Dust rose in small clouds. Behind the last drawer, wedged between the wood panels, I found a small brown envelope sealed with wax. Gordon's handwriting across the front, to be opened only if the light turns dark. I broke the seal with shaking hands. Inside were photocopies of letters and 2 USB drives. The letters were written to Gordon from an insurance agent, discussing a policy update, confirming a change of beneficiary. The new name added to the file, Sable Reed. A tremor ran through me. Gordon had known. He'd seen something and recorded it, waiting for me to find it. I plugged the USB into the old computer. Folders opened, audio files, emails, a scanned document showing Gordon's notes. His last entry read, she asked too many questions about the villa. I told Caleb to lock everything under Cass's name. If anything happens to me, make sure Cass knows this wasn't an accident. I covered my mouth. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My husband had been afraid. When Nathan came in, I turned the monitor toward him. Read this. He scanned the lines, eyes wide. Mom, are you saying Sable? I don't know yet, I said softly, but whatever she did started long before we thought. That night, the wind howled through the eaves. I sat on the old couch, listening. At 1 a.m., my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Stop digging or you'll regret it. No name, no location, just words cold as metal. I took a deep breath, walked to the window, and drew the curtain aside. Across the street, under a streetlight, a car idled, headlights dim. Someone sat inside, watching. I didn't move. I just let them see me watching back. After a minute, the car drove away. In the morning, I told Caleb. He frowned. She's trying to intimidate you. Don't respond. I won't, I said, but I'll remember. I started documenting everything, the messages, the times, the shadows outside. My notebook grew thicker by the hour. She's trying to scare me. Fear only works if I believe in it. 3 days passed. Then the first real blow landed. A letter arrived in a plain envelope addressed to me. Inside was a copy of a complaint filed against me for fraudulent inheritance. My hand shook as I read the stamped lines. Sable had accused me of faking Gordon's will. When Nathan came home, he found me at the table with the papers spread out. She filed this? He asked, disbelief in his voice. Yes, I said quietly. She's trying to destroy me legally. He slammed his fist against the counter. She won't win. Dad's will was witnessed. True, I said, but she's buying time. Time to twist the truth. That evening, Caleb arrived with a grim face. The document she filed includes a duplicate of Gordon's signature, and it's good. Almost perfect. I stared at him. You mean forged? He nodded. She must have found the sample and had it copied. The forensics team will check, but it'll take weeks. Weeks. In those weeks, rumors could ruin everything. The next day, a reporter showed up at the gate asking questions about the Reed fortune. I told Estelle, the new housekeeper, don't let anyone in. We're not part of their circus. Still, my stomach twisted. Sable was pulling strings I didn't even know existed. That night, I sat with Gordon's letters again, searching for something, anything that would prove authenticity. Then I saw it. On one page, he doodled a small magnolia flower in the corner, the same shape he carved on my locket years ago. His signature always had that mark. The forged one didn't. My breath caught. It was small, but it was proof. I called Caleb at once. Check the original. The real one has the magnolia symbol. Within hours, he confirmed it. You're right. It's unique. No one could have faked that detail. Relief washed through me, but it lasted only seconds because he added, Sable also submitted a new witness statement. Someone claiming Gordon said he planned to change the will in her favor. I frowned. Who? A man named Dr. Walter Price. My heart dropped. Dr. Price had been Gordon's physician. I remembered his gentle voice at the funeral, his polite condolences. Could she have bought him? The next morning, I visited his clinic. The nurse looked surprised to see me. Dr. Price took a short leave, she said. He's in Dallas for a conference. Dallas again. Always Dallas. When I got home, Nathan met me at the door, panic in his eyes. Mom, the police came. They said they got a call about hidden evidence in the house. I froze. Who called them? He hesitated. They didn't say, but they searched Dad's study. I ran upstairs. Drawers open, files scattered, my notebook gone. My pulse hammered. She took it, I whispered. Everything I wrote. Nathan put a hand on my shoulder. We'll tell Caleb. I shook my head. No. We'll find her first. That night I sat in the garage again, the same cold room where this began. The air smelled of oil and memory. I whispered to myself, if she wants darkness, I'll give her light. I went through Gordon's desk one last time. At the back, hidden under a false panel, was a small metal box. Inside were 3 old cassette tapes labeled only with dates. I found an old recorder and pressed play. Gordon's voice filled the room, steady, familiar, achingly human. If anyone's hearing this, it means my instincts were right. Something's off with Sable. She asked me to sign an updated policy. I refused. She smiled too easily. The tape clicked off. Tears blurred my vision. I pressed play on the next one. Cass, if anything happens to me, go to Caleb. He knows how to reach Harlan Stone, the investigator I hired. I scribbled the name down fast. Harlan Stone. The following day, I drove to a small office on the edge of town. The nameplate read H. Stone Investigations. Inside, a thin man with silver hair looked up from his desk. You must be Cassandra Reed. I wondered when you'd come. He pulled a folder from his drawer. Gordon hired me 8 months before he died. He suspected his accounts were being monitored. He never told me who, but he said, if I die suddenly, check the insurance trail. He slid a stack of reports across the table. Transaction logs, voice transcripts, photos. One photo froze my breath. Sable in a cafe with Dr. Price, her hand on his wrist, both smiling. I whispered, he trusted her even then. Stone said quietly, she's clever, but not perfect. She leaves patterns. Follow the money. It always tells the truth. That night, I pored over the documents. The pattern was clear. Payments made to Dr. Price's account right after Gordon's death. Dates matched exactly with the insurance claim. It wasn't grief that had driven her. It was profit. At dawn, the first light crept through the blinds. I felt both heavy and clear. Sable's secret wasn't just betrayal. It was crime. But I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. And peace only comes when truth walks into daylight. So I planned my next step carefully. I called Caleb. I have evidence. Enough to end this. He paused. Are you sure, Cassandra? Once this starts, it won't stop. I've been sure since the day she threw my luggage in the garage, I said. The following morning, we met at his office. He handed me a manila folder. The police will take your statement tomorrow. Keep calm. Tell them only what you know. I nodded, but inside, dread simmered. People like Sable don't surrender. They break things on their way down. That night, Nathan received a message on his phone. It was a video, grainy, shaky, showing a car speeding down a wet road, headlights flashing. A woman's voice screamed in the background. Then static. The number was unknown. Nathan's hand shook. Mom, it's her. I watched the clip again. The car's license plate was barely visible, but the model was hers, the white BMW. She was running, or pretending to. The next morning, I went outside. The magnolia blossoms had started to fall, white petals covering the driveway like snow. In their quiet beauty, I saw the truth. Every fall looks gentle until you hear the break. I turned back toward the house. My home. My battlefield. My proof of survival. Inside, the phone rang once more. I answered, and a cold voice said, "You shouldn't have opened the box, Cassandra." Then the line went dead. I stood there, heart pounding, holding the receiver like it was part of me. The house was silent again, but the silence no longer felt safe. It felt watched. And for the first time since Gordon died, I realized this fight wasn't about money anymore. It was about survival. From that moment on, I stopped being afraid. Fear doesn't protect you. It only keeps you standing still while your enemies move. And I had stood still long enough. The house felt like a stranger now. Every shadow whispered. Every sound seemed to breathe her name, Sable. I could feel her even when she wasn't there. Her perfume lingered faintly in the hallway, her echoes still clinging to the walls. Nathan had barely slept. He sat on the couch, staring at his phone, replaying that strange video again and again. The car, the scream, the static. "Mom," he said quietly, "what if something really happened to her?" I looked at him, steady. "Then the truth will find us either way." He shook his head. "She's capable of anything. If she's alive, she's planning something. And if she's not, then we're already too late," I finished. That night, I checked every lock twice. The windows, the doors, even the back gate. The wind howled through the magnolia trees outside, bending the branches till they scraped against the glass. I stood there for a long time, staring into the dark, and whispered to myself, "You wanted light, Cassandra? Now face it." The next morning, Caleb called. "The police will come by today. They have questions about the insurance claim and the new evidence you found." "Will they arrest her?" I asked. "Not yet," he said. "They want to verify the recordings and the money trail. But they're close. Close." That word comforted me and frightened me at the same time. At noon, 2 detectives arrived. They were polite, quiet men in gray suits. The older one introduced himself as Detective Hart. "We understand you've been receiving threats, Mrs. Reed," he said gently. "May we look around the property?" "Of course," I said. "But be careful. She's unpredictable." They searched the house, took photographs, bagged the torn papers from the garden. When they found the cassettes, I saw their eyes change. Hart turned to me. "You said your husband recorded these himself?" "Yes. Before he died." He nodded slowly. "Then this may explain a lot more than you realize." By evening, they left, promising to contact me soon. I felt lighter for the first time in weeks, like the truth was finally crawling out of the dark. But that feeling didn't last long. Around 9 p.m., Nathan's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and froze. "It's her," he whispered. I felt my chest tighten. "Answer it." He put the call on speaker. Sable's voice came through, hoarse but steady. "Nathan, you need to listen to me." He stiffened. "Where are you?" "I'm safe. For now. But your mother isn't who you think she is." I felt the air leave my lungs. "Put her on," I said. "Cassandra," she said, her tone dripping with mock sweetness. "Still pretending to be the victim?" "Pretending?" I asked calmly. "Yes. You think I'm stupid. I know about the offshore accounts. The money Gordon hid. You think I didn't find the transfer logs?" Nathan frowned, confused. "What is she talking about?" I closed my eyes. "She's lying." Sable laughed softly through the phone. "Oh, am I? Then check your email, dear." A second later, Nathan's phone pinged. An email arrived with an attachment labeled proof.pdf. He opened it slowly, and there it was. Screenshots of bank transactions, accounts under my name. Millions wired out of the country months before Gordon's death. Nathan looked at me, pale. Mom, I took a deep breath. That's not real. Those accounts were closed years ago. She's manipulating data. Sybil's voice came again. Believe who you want, Nathan. But soon, everyone will see who your saintly mother really is. The line cut. Silence filled the room like thick smoke. Nathan stared at me, his jaw tight. Tell me the truth, Mom. Is any of that real? No, I said firmly. Your father moved the money for tax protection. I didn't touch a cent. He nodded slowly, but doubt lingered in his eyes. And that was what she wanted. The next morning, news broke online. Wealthy widow under investigation for hidden offshore funds. My face was on the article. The photos had been leaked. Caleb called immediately. Cassandra, listen to me. She's playing her last hand. Don't react publicly. I've already sent proof of her forgery to the police. Then how did she get my information? I asked. He hesitated. She might have hacked your old accounts, or someone close to you helped her. I froze. Someone close. Nathan. No, not willingly, but his laptop, his passwords. She lived in this house long enough to know every corner of our lives. I sat down slowly. She's trying to destroy me through my own son. That night, thunder rolled in again. The power flickered. The wind rattled the shutters. I lit a candle and sat in Gordon's office. On the desk lay his old fountain pen and the photo of us on our wedding day. I touched the frame gently. You told me to stay silent, I whispered. But silence has a cost. The lights went out completely, and in that moment of darkness, I heard it, a creak from the hallway. Slow, deliberate. Nathan? I called. No answer. Another sound closer now, the soft click of a shoe on tile. My breath caught. I stood up, candle shaking in my hand. The hallway stretched ahead, shadows flickering on the walls. Then a voice, low, cold, too close. Still awake, Cassandra? The candlelight trembled, and there she was, Sable. Her hair was damp, her face pale but alive, her eyes wild and sharp. Miss me? She asked, stepping forward. Nathan ran in from behind me. Sable. How? She held up a small gun, her hand steady. Don't move. Nathan froze. My body went cold. Sable's smile widened. You should have known better, Cassandra. You thought you could bury me with paperwork and pity, but I'm still here. What do you want? I asked softly. She laughed. What I'm owed. Half of everything. Gordon promised me that before he died. You forged that promise, I said. She tilted her head. Maybe, but who's going to believe you now? The media thinks you're a thief. Your son doesn't even know who you are anymore. Nathan's voice shook. Put the gun down, Sable. Please. Her eyes flicked to him. You still defending her, even after all the lies. She didn't lie, he shouted. Sable's hand trembled slightly. You have no idea what your father did to me, Nathan. He used me. He made me part of his little game. You think I married you for money? I married you to survive. I stepped closer, my voice low. Survival doesn't mean destroying everyone else. She aimed the gun at me. You think you're better than me because you stayed quiet all these years? You're just as ruthless as I am. For a moment, time slowed. The storm roared outside, lightning flashing through the window, lighting her face like a mask of fury and fear. Then Nathan moved, fast. He lunged forward, trying to grab her arm. The gun went off. The sound was deafening. The candle fell, rolling across the floor. Smoke filled the room. My ears rang as I looked around wildly. Nathan stumbled back, clutching his arm, blood seeping through his sleeve. Sable, stop! I screamed. She backed away, eyes wide. I didn't mean, Nathan groaned, falling against the wall. I grabbed him, pressing my hand to the wound. You'll be okay. Stay with me. Sable's face twisted with panic. This wasn't supposed to happen. I looked up at her, tears burning my eyes. Then make it right. Put the gun down. For a second, her expression softened, just a flicker of the woman she once pretended to be. Then she turned and ran out the back door into the rain. I held Nathan tightly. Stay awake, baby. Help is coming. My shaking hands dialed 911. The dispatcher's voice was calm and clear. Ma'am, stay on the line. We're sending units now. Minutes later, flashing lights cut through the darkness. The door burst open. Officers rushed in. Paramedics knelt beside Nathan, their hands moving fast, voices steady. Detective Hart followed, rain dripping from his coat. Mrs. Reed, where is she? She ran, I whispered. Into the woods. Hart nodded to his team. Fan out. She can't be far. They vanished into the storm. I sat on the floor beside my son, trembling as sirens wailed outside. His hand gripped mine weakly. Mom. Yes, sweetheart? I'm sorry I ever doubted you. Tears streamed down my face. No, Nathan. You're my strength. Always. The medics lifted him onto a stretcher. As they carried him out, Hart turned back to me. We'll find her. I promise. I nodded numbly. Be careful. She's desperate. Hours passed. The house was silent again, except for the ticking of that same clock. I sat in the living room, the candle burned out, staring at the rain-streaked window. Then I saw movement, a shadow across the lawn. I stood slowly, heart hammering. The shadow moved closer, clearer now. It wasn't Sable. It was an officer, Hart himself, soaked to the bone. He stepped inside, shaking his head. We searched the woods for hours. No sign of her. My chest tightened. She's still out there? He nodded. If she's injured, she can't get far. But she's dangerous. I looked toward the dark forest beyond the magnolia trees. Every leaf seemed to whisper. She won't stop, I said quietly. Not until she gets what she wants. Hart said, then we'll make sure she gets what she deserves. He handed me his card. Call me if anything feels wrong. Anything at all. When he left, I locked every door again, one by one. My hands still shook, but not from fear, from the weight of everything that had led to this night. I walked into Gordon's office and sat by his old desk. His pen still lay there, a symbol of his calm wisdom. I picked it up and whispered, "You told me truth always wins. I hope you're right." Outside, dawn began to break. The rain slowed to a drizzle. Light filtered through the magnolia leaves, painting soft gold patterns on the floor. I should have felt peace, but something in me knew the story wasn't over. Because as I turned off the lamp, my phone buzzed again. A new message. No name, just 3 words. See you soon. For a long moment, I couldn't breathe. The rain outside had stopped, yet the air inside the house felt heavy, pressing against my chest. The world had gone still, as if even time was waiting to see what would happen next. I set the phone down, every nerve awake. My heart beat in my throat. It was morning now, pale light spilling through the curtains, soft but cold. The message sat there like a quiet threat. Sable was alive, and she was coming back. I stood slowly, forcing my body to move. Fear would not win this time. I had lived through humiliation, betrayal, even a gunshot night. What was left to fear? Only the truth. I checked the locks again, then went to Gordon's study. His pen was still on the desk. I touched it, the way I used to touch his hand when I needed courage. If she comes, I whispered, I'll be ready. Outside, the magnolia tree swayed gently in the wind, its white petals falling like snow. For the first time, the sound didn't scare me. It sounded like life returning. Hours passed. The police patrolled near the woods, searching every path. Nathan was still in the hospital recovering. The doctor said he'd be fine. I visited him every day, bringing soup, books, and small smiles I didn't quite feel. But inside, I was still waiting for the shadow that hadn't yet appeared. 3 days later, she did. It was dusk when I heard it, a slow car rolling up the driveway, tires crunching gravel. My heart thudded once, hard. I peeked through the curtain. A black sedan stopped outside the gate. A woman stepped out, wearing a long gray coat. Her hair was shorter now, her face thinner. But I would have known that walk anywhere. Sable. I didn't panic. I opened the front door before she could knock. The look on her face was not what I expected. There was no cruelty, only exhaustion. "Cassandra," she said quietly, "don't call the police. I just need to talk." I didn't answer. I stepped aside. "You have 5 minutes." She walked in slowly, her heels silent on the wooden floor. She looked around the living room like someone visiting an old dream. "You kept it the same," she murmured. "Even the rug." "I didn't change what wasn't broken," I said. She laughed softly. "That's what Gordon used to say too." I folded my arms. "Why are you here?" Her eyes glistened, not with anger, but something else. "Because it's over," she said. "The police are after me. Derek's in custody, and I can't run anymore." I stayed silent. She sighed and sat down on the couch. "You won, Cassandra. You always had the upper hand. I was just too blind to see it." "I didn't win," I said. "No one wins in a war like this. Everyone loses something." Sable looked at me for a long time. "You lost Gordon." "I lost myself." For the first time, her voice cracked. She pulled out a small folded paper from her pocket. "I wrote this last night. It's my statement. I'll turn myself in tomorrow. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry." The words hung in the air, fragile and heavy. "Sorry," I repeated. "You nearly destroyed my family. You shot my son." Tears rolled down her face. "I know, and that's why I can't live with it anymore." For the first time in years, I saw the real woman beneath the mask, not the manipulator, not the perfect wife, just a broken person who had run out of lies. She set the folded paper on the coffee table and stood. "Nathan deserves peace. And you deserve to live without looking over your shoulder." I nodded slowly. "Then do it. Turn yourself in." She gave a small, trembling smile. "I will." She walked toward the door, then stopped, her hand on the knob. "Cassandra?" "Yes. When I married Nathan, I really did love him. Before the money, before everything else. I just didn't know how to love right." I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. She opened the door and stepped into the fading light. I watched her walk down the driveway until she was gone, her figure swallowed by the evening mist. That night I sat alone in the quiet house. For the first time, it didn't feel haunted. It just felt still, peaceful. The next morning, Detective Hart called. "Mrs. Reed, she surrendered herself this morning, confessed to everything. Your son's name is clear." I exhaled a long breath that felt like it had waited years to escape. "Thank you," I said softly. After the call, I went outside. The sun was bright, the air sweet with magnolia bloom. I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, staring at the sky. I thought of Gordon, of everything he'd left me, not the money, not the house, but the quiet strength to stand when life tried to break me. Weeks passed. Nathan recovered fully. His arm bore a small scar, but he called it his reminder. He came home with the kids, Ava and Liam, bringing laughter back to walls that had forgotten the sound. "Grandma," Liam said one morning, "are you happy now?" I smiled. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm happy because we're safe." Ava climbed into my lap. "Will Mom ever come back?" I paused, choosing my words carefully. "Maybe one day, but some people have to go far away before they can come home again." Ava nodded, wise beyond her years. "Then I hope she finds her way." That night, I wrote in my journal again, the same one I had started on that first terrible night in the garage. Day 365. The storm is over. I kept my promise to Gordon. I stood tall, and now I can rest. The months turned into a gentle rhythm. The house filled with new memories, birthdays, dinners, laughter echoing through every room. The magnolia tree grew taller, its roots stronger, as if it too had survived a battle. One afternoon, Nathan came to me holding a small box. "Mom," he said softly, "I think Dad would want you to have this." Inside was Gordon's old wristwatch, the one he wore every day for 40 years. I ran my fingers over the cool metal, feeling time and love in every scratch. "Keep it," Nathan said. "It's your turn to measure peace instead of pain." I smiled. "Maybe I will." That evening, I walked out to the garden. The sunset painted the sky gold and rose. I whispered to the air, "We made it, Gordon." A soft breeze brushed my cheek, gentle like a hand I remembered. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and felt peace spread through me like warmth after a long winter. Years later, people still whispered about the Reed family, about the tragedy, the scandal, the betrayal, but I stopped caring what stories they told. Because I knew the truth, not every ending is loud. Some are quiet, like forgiveness whispered between broken hearts. Nathan rebuilt his business. The kids grew strong and kind. I started a small scholarship in Gordon's name for women rebuilding their lives after loss. Each year, when the letters came from those women thanking me, I felt something heal a little more. One spring morning, I stood in the garden with Ava, now 16. She looked around and said, "Grandma, this place feels alive again?" I'd smiled. Because it is. We finally learned how to live without fear. The magnolia blossoms swayed above us, white petals falling slowly to the ground. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear the rain tapping softly on the roof. It doesn't sound lonely anymore. It sounds like a heartbeat, steady and calm. I open my journal and write one last line. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past. It just lets the future begin. Then I close it, set it on the table, and blow out the candle. Outside, the moonlight drapes the house in silver. The wind carries the scent of flowers and the echo of a man's laughter, or maybe just memory pretending to be sound. Either way, it's enough. I whisper, "Good night, Gordon." I kept the promise, and for the first time in years, I sleep without dreams because I no longer need them. I already lived the one that mattered. If you stayed with me until the end of this journey, thank you. Tell me in the comments, have you ever found peace after betrayal? Your story might give strength to someone who needs it tonight. And if you believe, like I do, that kindness and courage can still change the world, please like, subscribe, and share so this story can reach one more heart that needs to hear it. Because every storm ends and every heart deserves its sunrise.